Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're
the Time Travel Trio.
Is this episode 22?
I'm pretty sure it's episode 22.
I'm pretty sure it is, too.
It is.
21 was 12 Monkeys, and I remember
yeah.
when I looked at it like on iTunes, it was like kind of reversed. It looked like a mirror.
Yeah, it does.
So.
Oh, whoa, I didn't think about
Ooh.
that. It's a code, everyone. Like a J.J. Abrams type code. It's leading to something, we promise.
So, this is an important episode, I feel like, for our podcast. We waited to do this for a while.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated, pretty crazy.
Which drum roll?
This is 2004's Primer. Written, directed, starring, scored by, pretty much all done by Shane Carruth.
Yeah, the credits read like a film school project.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
It kind of reminded me of Death Suspects Murder, our movie that we did.
It wasn't made for much more money than
No,
Death
I
Suspects
know.
Murder.
That's what he asked me. For listeners, Hyde and I made a feature in college called Death Suspects Murder.
Yeah,
$3,000
budget.
Yeah, very low budget. But it just reminded me because in that movie, with us and then our other friend Robbie, where like all the credits was just the three of us doing every single task. So
Yeah, and for almost $7,000 too.
Yeah.
Which is what the budget for this movie was.
Yeah, it's not that much more.
Yeah, so this movie, if you like time travel movies, like independently of this podcast, you probably have seen this and have, already know about it. But hopefully you've seen it. We're going to be spoiling everything.
If you haven't seen it,
yeah. But here's the thing, though. Even seeing the movie,
it doesn't.
Yeah,
doesn't help.
I'm going to help explain what happens in the movie because I sought out the explanations of it, and I kind of went beyond just watching the movie. Because if you just watch it, you don't know enough.
Right.
So obviously, there'll be spoilers, but it's really more of just like here's an explanation of what happened in the movie, as far as me and other people who aren't Shane Carruth can tell. Unfortunately, there isn't a trailer that's good enough for a podcast.
Yeah, but the description: 4 friends/fledgling entrepreneurs, knowing that there's something bigger and more innovative than the different error-checking devices they've built, wrestle over their new invention. I disagree that is the description of this movie. Completely.
First of all, 2 friends.
In the beginning, there's 4, I guess they're friends, 4 people who are in a garage workshop, think like early Steve Jobs dish.
They make little like computer chips that hackers are buying. Like they can't get big orders, but they're coworkers, not friends. I would say.
Yeah.
Right. Not to mention, it's really only Abe and Aaron.
Yeah, they're very even 4 people is kind of cliquey. Like they have the other 2 guys have their clique, and then Abe and Aaron, our main guys, have their own clique separate from the other 2 guys. I would say.
Right.
So, yeah, I disagree with that description. But since there's no trailer, I think we should try and make one ourselves.
Okay. All right. I'm going to start off with a phone call.
Okay.
You're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you, mostly because it doesn't make sense. But I'm going to try to explain it to you anyways.
I think.
Oh, snap!
Yeah.
Time travel.
How did Chris Rock end up in this?
I don't know.
This movie. It's kind of amazing.
So you're saying, like, there's someone 6 hours beforehand that's me, but not me.
Yeah, look, I bought us a storage facility box thing.
What?
That's where we time travel.
This is crazy. I thought we were just doing stuff in our garage. Like, I honestly thought we were eventually just going to give this up, maybe sell off some stock, start a band.
It's okay. Look, what we'll do is we'll just only use it to buy stock.
Yeah.
Until we decide not to anymore, and then shit will just go crazy.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
The end. And that's our trailer.
You're forgetting the part where the guy says, are you sure you're going to be completely ethical with this and not do something possibly world-ending?
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously we're having fun, but the movie is very serious and very, I don't know, I mean...
heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy, but, I've seen it before, obviously, years and years ago.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about it, watching it this
that's
time?
the thing. So, when Jen watched it for the first time...
Should I say this?
Yeah, well, yeah, you can start, yeah.
Okay. I watched this movie, and I absolutely hated it. 100%. Sorry.
Whoa!
Really
I can feel the Twitter rage.
Feel free. I've already gotten comments of people saying how I've dissed their favorite movies because I didn't love 12 Monkeys either. Sorry. I will get into it for the reasons I have for not liking this movie, but I ended it and sent Matt a text saying, I hate this stupid movie.
Yeah.
So
this was before I rewatched it, for the first time in years. And so I was trying to think back like how I felt watching it. And I watched it for the first time off a recommendation that a friend of mine gave me. And so I wasn't analyzing it. I wasn't expecting anything really. I just watched it. And I remember obviously not understanding it. I think everyone that's seen this movie will agree that 3/4 of the way through, it just loses you because you no longer know what's going on,
right?
By design almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's deliberate pretty much. I think Shane Carruth designed it to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
But so I don't think I didn't dislike it the first time through, but I don't think I think I watched it kind of the same thing where like, oh, this is the indie movie. I'm cool about watching it, because no one else knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second time through, I still was lost 3/4 of the way through. And then I was determined after watching it the second time through to actually understand all the timelines, how it all worked out. And then after getting there and understanding it, I think I begrudgingly like it. I say that because I think there's a missed opportunity from the way that he directed the movie to actually show this cool timeline thing that he did. So the time travel is cool, but I think it could have been done better,
So Hyde, how did you feel about it?
I watched this Friday night, and I was telling you guys before we started recording, I had like a beer or two while watching this. Actually, it was 2 beers. When I say a beer or two, it was 2. It was 2 beers while watching it.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. And, at first, I was keeping up. I honestly was. Like the first about half of the movie, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This box can. I don't know why I kept calling it the printer box in my mind.
Because they come out like a piece of printed paper.
It's like the Xerox in the time machine. Like, okay,
the coffin. I think they call
they're
it.
like, cool. I get it. They have to keep. They can't. There's duplicates. They're time traveling. I was with it. About 20 minutes after saying, okay, I'm following this, I was totally lost and thinking, why am I drinking beer while watching this movie?
Yeah.
I am so lost. And then by the end of the movie, I was just like, anything could have happened at that point. The earth could have, split in half. And I would have been like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense. they're doing.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Chip by the paper. It was, but I heard so much about this film. I think I had a more positive reaction to it. I got to think about it a little bit more still if I like it or not. It's so fresh still in my mind. I'm still digesting it. But it was definitely unique and intriguing.
Well, the problem is not everything's in the movie. So even if you rewatch it, you still won't figure it out because not enough is in there to actually see it. It does span out. It does track. There is a logic to it, but it's not in the movie. You either have to be a genius, which I doubt many people that, are movie fans. They're not Stephen Hawking level,
Hey, we're movie fans.
I'm just joking.
No, we didn't understand it either, so you're right.
No, I just mean, there's no movie way to explain what happens. You need to actually, kind of make guesses or really kind of map it out.
Which is a big reason why I don't like it. I don't have a problem with movies that I don't fully understand, that they don't explain everything to me. So I'm just putting that as, a statement out front before I say all the things that I'm going to say. So, don't be well, you just didn't, understand, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a problem if a movie doesn't show me every piece of information I need, but it needs to show me enough where I can follow your story and I can understand, so that even if I sit and have to think about it for an hour afterwards, by the end of me thinking about it, digesting, I should be able to still understand your movie and comprehend the story you're trying to tell and the path you took to get there. And this movie does not do that, and it does not do that well at all. So that is a big problem I had with this movie, and if you don't like me, feel free to comment to me on Twitter, because because I'm not gonna say that I like this movie just because it's a cool indie movie to like if you're smart and whatever. I have a problem with people who are well, this movie is super smart and it's clever and maybe you just don't understand. You have to watch it 500 times, whatever. I shouldn't have to watch a movie more than once, maybe twice, to follow it and comprehend. That's not how a movie should be made. That to me is a selfish way to make a movie. A movie's supposed to be for all audiences to enjoy, or at least most audiences to enjoy, and to be able to follow it. This movie does not do that, and that is my big problem with it.
Yeah, and I was reading that I think it is by design, because the point at which you do lose track, that everyone loses track, is the point at which the characters lose control of like the situation. They no longer have the upper hand. They don't know what's going on anymore, and so it's by design, which, you know, from a filmmaker's perspective, probably from Shane Carruth's perspective, is a cool move, but it's a little pretentious, because you're like, you know, then you sacrifice the quality of the movie by making this decision to then confuse your audience to the point where they can't follow along anymore.
It feels like he's withholding information from anyone who watches the movie, because he's the one who wrote it, so he's the only one who has all of these pieces, but he doesn't want to give it to us. He's like a spoiled child who's like, no, I'm going to finish the puzzle. I'm not going to give you the pieces so that we can share.
I get what you're saying on that. That's a beautiful rant, by the way.
I feel very strongly about people who say they like things just because they think it makes them popular.
That's true. I mean,
stick to how you feel.
Look, Shane Carruth, if you're listening, you know,
sorry.
Like, apologize on Jen's behalf.
Not really, because I'm not sorry for feeling the way I feel about your movie. You should know that when you make a movie, not everyone will like
personal.
it.
Sorry, not sorry. But,
there's no such thing as a perfect movie.
But she's supposed to even know it's not personal. It's just how she feels.
But here's the thing.
Maybe it's a little personal.
But here's my perspective, is that I'm also a fellow math major. Shane Carruth has a degree in math. He was an ex-engineer. So for that perspective, I like the challenge of figuring it out. I wish that it was in the movie, but after... so I'll reference this analysis by someone online named Sam Hughes. He has a website, qntm.org, and he explains the movie pretty well, and he also has a fan commentary. So credit to him for helping me realize all these things that happen in the movie. But I kind of liked figuring out the puzzle eventually. So from a cerebral standpoint, I liked figuring it out. But yeah, it's not in the movie. That's a problem.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's too much work to try and figure it out.
Exactly.
I kind of was saying to Matt before we started that it's different than a movie like Memento, that the first time you watch it, you are a little lost and you don't really understand. But by the end of the movie, you understand. And if you watch it a second time, it makes total sense.
Right.
This movie is not that way.
Well, I mean, this is something that I've talked about with several people, and it's called the Christopher Nolan method, which Christopher Nolan loves to make movies that are complex, but he doesn't go, as I would say, Stanley Kubrick on you, and totally just make it like you have to watch this 20 times to get it. He's like, no, you'll be able to get it by the end of it. It's and you'll probably enjoy it more the second time around. He said, but I'm gonna give you everything you need to figure it out.
Like Inception makes sense at the end, but 2001: Space Odyssey does not, unless you know more than what's shown in the movie.
Right, it's like research. Like even The Shining, you have to, even though you can kind of get the gist of it, to really get what he's talking about. I mean, there's a whole movie about what The Shining really is about. It's a whole documentary. I mean, which is fine. I like rich movie history like that, but it can be annoying, particularly in a movie like this where you so badly want to know everything that's happening, mathematics-wise, science-wise, because The Shining, there's a lot going on underneath the surface, but at the end of the day, it's about a kid and a mom trying to escape their psychopath father who's been demon-possessed. So it's a little bit different. There's still a satisfying end. This movie, not to spoil it, well, I mean, at this point,
we will.
But
the end should explain things more than it does.
It does. The ending is very chilling. It does put a very potentially horrible future in play. It didn't leave me unsatisfied. I just felt very frazzled at the end of it. Again, I was like, maybe that was the beers. I'll be honest. But I was just like, oh my goodness. I just felt like this is so above my head right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to be a math major to figure out what just happened.
Yeah. Which I don't like. I don't like that it's a movie that makes you feel stupid for not understanding it. Not in a way like you have to think, but you have to be, as you said, Stephen Hawking level smart to really be able to follow and comprehend that. I don't like a movie that makes it so challenging. Like, for me, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but for me, I like cerebral films, but I also like that filmmaking is to immerse people into this world that you've created as a director, as a filmmaker, and for them to be, enclosed in it and to follow how you want them to follow. But this, I'm sorry, but Shane Carruth, to me, is like, well, you're going to follow till I want you to follow, and then you're kind of on your own because I would rather take away pieces of the story so you don't fully understand what I'm trying to say. And I don't get why he wants to do that. Maybe it's ego, I don't know. But yeah, I just really did not like this movie.
It also, I mean, to be fair to Shane, it also could have had something to do with budget constraints and time. It's not a very long movie.
Honestly, he filmed the movie in 2001, and it took a long time for him to actually finish it, and I think he almost gave up a couple times, so it might have just been frustration, in order for it to actually work without it being, really falling apart with plot holes. Maybe he had to just say, all right, let's just cut our losses and just, make it 97 minutes or whatever it is.
Because we rarely say this with movies.
Or 77.
This is a movie that could have done with another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It really could have done.
For sure.
And I'm not someone who even had a negative opinion about the movie. I just felt like there was so much more, and just when we were getting to the meat of it, I lost it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? There might be some people on Twitter like, well, you're just stupid. And I'm like, I'm a media production major.
Everyone that's seen this movie for the first time, they can't follow along because you can't.
Yeah.
But you want to just get into everything then? You want to start breaking into the time travel?
Yeah.
All right. So Abe and Aaron. Aaron is the main character. It's Shane Carruth. He's playing him. They're experimenting with anti-gravity technology to try to figure out how they can defy gravity, and in doing so, they find a way to have a bubble of space-time, kind of, they manipulate space so much that it affects time, is the way I kind of understood it. And they start off with this little box, and they have a little weeble, and that's, a weeble wobble, and they put it in there, and they mess with it to see, what happens if they put it in there. Mm-hmm. And they find out that there's bacteria on it, they find out that it messes with the time, and I have a clip here of Abe explaining what's happening to the Weeble as it's in the box.
What's the one variable that you can turn negative and still get rational answers?
It's 1 minute out here.
It's not mass. It's not
22 hours.
It's around 1,300.
27 minutes in the box.
It's odd. It's an odd number.
How many minutes is that? That's 1,347 minutes.
Okay, yeah. 1,347, man. You got that fast.
Why is it odd? How did you know it was odd?
Okay, because this is it, okay? This is what's going on. There's an AN and there's a BN. Okay, let's say the AN is 12 o'clock, the BN is 12:01. All right, we start the machine with the Weeble at the AN. It travels forward normally.
You gotta write this down.
Hey, Aaron, there's nothing to write down.
Well, then I'm writing it.
Okay, fine. Look, it travels forward normally towards the BN, and when it gets there, the feed runs down parabolically until it's just stopped, but it doesn't. It curves back around towards the AN. And when it gets back to the AN, now curve that around. Okay, now the Weeble has experienced a total of 2 minutes. And again, it curves
back around. It curves parabolically.
Right. So it comes back around again, and it does this about 1,300 times, and when it finally exits on the BN, it's traveling an odd number of forward and backward trips.
Now, what is so special about 1,300? And why is it about 1,300? Why isn't it exact? This is not empirical.
Here, give me that. Okay, I don't know why it's not exact. There's some sort of probability there. Okay, every time it hits the BN, there's a chance, okay, a small chance it won't curve back around towards the AN. And for some reason, it takes about 1,300 trips before it finally does.
So basically, it creates a field that if you put it in, let's say you started at 12 o'clock, you put it in at the A end, it'll go around from A and B until you pull it out. If you're outside of the machine, it'll be at 12:05, for example. So it'll have made an odd number of trips. But if you're a human being, you can time when to leave, so you can enter at the B end and know when you're going to be at the A end, and you can walk out at the A end. Because as you ramp up the machine, it creates the point A, and once you turn it off, it ramps down and creates the B point. And that's when it's least dangerous to enter and exit it, when the field is dying down or ramping up. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a mirrored, if you look at the way that it ramps up and down,
Yeah, and as Hyde says, it looks like a printer. So
It does. It does. I mean, maybe that was just the budget. It's like this printer modified.
Right.
They call it a coffin, so you basically lay in it and you end up, in there. So they make a box that they can fit in, and I like the first reveal of the time travel that we see as an audience, because Abe is explaining how you can make a box that can fit a person. And as Aaron is like, what do you mean? Like you lay in it, and he says, yeah. And then you see another Abe in the background walking out of the storage facility. It's like a cool little reveal saying I already did it, and I have time traveled.
It's kind of like Time Crimes, actually, when he goes into the back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of time crimes, it's similar in that you enter a machine in the future, and you exit at the point it was turned on in the past.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like that idea of a time machine where you can only use it as far back as you've created it and have turned it on.
Yeah.
Right. That is cool.
I like that consistency too.
Yeah. But the difference with this movie is that there are multiple timelines, and that's where it gets messy.
Yeah.
Because if you, I think regardless of whether you change things or not, you're entering a new timeline. But if you mess things up so much so that you don't go back in the machine again, there will now be two of you. And that's where that's where the drama arises with these characters.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I just didn't like it. The beginning immediately reminded me of Project Almanac.
Oh,
It did.
That's the thing.
I'm sorry, but it did.
In my notes, I wrote it's the opposite of Project Almanac because it's it's thought out. But yeah, they're in a garage.
But it does. I'm not saying it's like Project Almanac. I'm saying it just reminded me of it.
I see.
I'm not saying it's similar, but it felt the same in the beginning to me. And I'm the kind of person who is like, okay, 10 minutes in, what happened to the other guys? They just aren't there anymore, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, the four friends. I mean, that is a little strange.
They only ever come back to mention the party from last night. That's all they ever come back to do in the movie.
Honestly, and this is not to go back again to low budget filmmaking. It was probably we got these actors for one day.
Yeah.
We just need to fill this place up so it doesn't look like only 1-2 people are in this movie.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Hey, John, Rick. Yeah, what? Want to be in my movie? Yeah, sure.
Well, funny enough, Shane's dad plays Granger. He has no speaking lines, but that's Shane's dad that's running around and
I did not know that.
Yeah, passes out on the ground. Yeah.
I mean, I do think now the scene you played I actually really like that scene because it felt very kinetic. It felt like these two engineer scientists really figuring out because that's one of the things we always want to see in these time travel movies. How are they actually time traveling? That was one of the big follies with 12 Monkeys in the last movie is that they never really explain it.
Yeah.
However, this is it's almost like this is the reverse in a sense of the time travel flaws of 12 Monkeys in a way. Because in this one, they spend all the time explaining how the time travel works.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk of the movie. How does time travel work? How does this scientifically, mathematically, engineer-wise work? The problem is then when the timelines start getting really funky. And not when when it first happens, it's still kind of okay, I kind of get where this is going. Once it gets wild, once it really goes off the rails, that's when, I wouldn't even say necessarily plot holes, but just kind of it almost feels like omissions. That's why I think something got cut out. I feel like there's scenes missing.
I mean, literally, so you think up until the point where they are confused that you're only watching the original Aaron and the original Abe going through this, thing where they go back 6 hours and do stock trading. But actually, right from the first scene where Aaron talks about time travel, where Abe talks about time travel at the bench, Aaron has already time traveled.
Right.
Because that, and I'll get into it and I'll use actual, different versions of them. But right from the get-go, we're already being lied to, which we do see in a flashback. But, that's kind of where it's, we already don't know enough right from the start.
Yeah, one of my big problems was that you couldn't tell the difference between the duplicates, and they didn't give you enough information to follow who was who. So it was really hard to be able to tell which Aaron, which Abe, especially when there was the point where there was 3 sets of them. And so it was really confusing who was what and who knew what and who was from when.
Right, and I'll explain kind of that scenario, I guess. I mean, we can start now, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically, okay, the best way to explain this is at the end of the movie, there are 3 Aarons and there are 2 Abes left in the world. So regardless of all the timelines that are happening, at the end of the day, in the timeline that we're at, there's 3 Aarons and 2 Abes. The way that we got 3 Aarons is that as soon as Abe showed Aaron the time machine in the U-Haul storage before Aaron did anything, he noticed that there were 2 rooms under Abe's name. At that point, this original Aaron then made his own box because he saw the box and he copied it how Abe made it. And he used the failsafe. We don't see this in the movie, only in flashback, really. He then uses the failsafe to go back to before all this happened And so the first bench scene is, I'll call him Aaron 3, and you'll see why later on, but that's Aaron 3 already recording the conversation, because he already time traveled to the beginning of all this. So from that point forward, it's kind of simple. It's, now it's Aaron 3 and the original Abe just going through their day, doing stock trading. But then something happens where they try to decide to change things. They want to punch a guy in the face and stop kids from turning on a car alarm, just as like an experiment to see, what more they can do. And that's when they meet Granger. Granger is the guy that's funding them.
Which was a note that I didn't even know watching this movie. I did not. All I knew was when they said later on that he was Rachel's father. I never got at all that the one line of dialogue that they probably were talking over each other over when they said that he was funding them. So that to me is kind of a problem. If he's going to be big enough that he's also time traveling in your movie, I should know who he is before all that happened.
Well, that's the thing. This is why he's there. He's there to be the catalyst of them not knowing what's going on anymore. Because once he shows up, neither of them have told him anything at that point. He's from the future. He has some beard that he doesn't have in the present day. So he's from some point in the future where they told him something and he used the machine. Neither of them can figure out why they would have told him, what reason they would have told him, or why he even came back to stop whatever maybe he's trying to stop. So at that point, Abe freaks out, and that's when he decides to use his failsafe. And this is when that Abe, now will be Abe 2, I'll say, he goes back using the failsafe, and Aaron realizes this. So Aaron 3, at this point, uses his failsafe to go back in time again. So now we're back at the beginning of the week, essentially. And Abe 2 drugs original Abe. Now I guess we'll say Abe 1. And puts him in the bathroom, whatever, so that he can, have an upper hand on Aaron. But Aaron went back in time to the point where he originally drugged himself and runs into himself drugging himself.
Where Aaron 3 drugged original Aaron?
So Aaron 3 walks in on, now we'll call him Aaron 2, who has only used the failsafe once, drugging himself. And he fights Aaron 2. Aaron 3 is weak because he used the failsafe twice.
Yeah.
And he has, his mind is messed up and his hands are not working properly. And he loses the fight. And then Aaron 2 and Aaron 3 talk about what's happening, and Aaron 2 decides that, Aaron 3 needs us more. He's already done my plan. He's already recorded the day because that's what he was originally planning to do, which he did do the first time we see him go through the bench scene. And so Aaron 2 just leaves. He just walks away and just, does his own thing. Side note, there's a narrator in the movie. It's by a phone call. That's Aaron 2 talking to the original Aaron that was drugged by Aaron. Well, I guess by Aaron 2 at that point, but it's a phone call he gave to him.
So if you're having a hard time following this, don't worry. That's how it feels when you watch the movie.
I know. We see most of this happen in flashbacks. And I actually have a clip of Aaron 2 on the phone. This is the narration that is in the movie. He's explaining what I kind of just said.
How? And that's where I would have entered the story. Or exited, depending on your reference. Because when Aaron came back the second time, it wasn't so easy. He wasn't expecting me to put up a fight, and by that time he was too exhausted to take me. But for reasons that are only evident to me now, I understood that he simply wanted it more, that he just had more invested. So I left. He had already performed the task, as I had intended to, of recording the conversations of the day just in case. Through that earpiece, he had a 3-second lead on the world.
Aaron, you need some sleep.
So then this sets up the final timeline, where Aaron and Abe, now Aaron has used the failsafe twice, this is Aaron 3, and with Abe 2. And their plan is to then engineer the day to stop Rachel's ex-boyfriend from shooting someone, maybe. We don't quite know what happened that night, because it's all seen in flashback, maybe. And this is where it kind of falls apart for me, personally. I don't like the whole party scene.
I thought it was
kind of
way too thrown in.
Yeah.
Like they needed a bigger catalyst of them just arguing over someone. That they needed something more dramatic is what I kind of think.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, one theory that I had was that maybe in the timeline where Granger did go back in time
Yeah.
was somehow related to Rachel getting shot and actually dying. Maybe that would explain why he would have a beard, and they maybe told him about it, saying that only he could fix it or something. You know, we don't know. So
Right.
that's part of the problem too. But they say that they go back multiple times to try and find different ways to stop the guy with the gun from shooting.
Yeah, so it might have just been those Aaron and Abe, just Aaron 3 and Abe 2, just doing it over and over again, just to see, just to make sure that it works out properly, So we don't quite know. All we hear is the phone call that Aaron 2 telling him what he thinks might have happened, because he wasn't there. At this point, Aaron 2 is somewhere else. He's already left for the day, and he's left the whole story pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't quite know. But yeah, after the party scene, Aaron 3 decides to go off and live his life. I don't think he has much time left because he had a lot of damage from traveling, and I think he just wanted to live out the rest of his days. And Abe 2 is going to watch Abe 1 and Aaron 1 to sabotage their machines and so they can never do it in the first place. But during that time period, Aaron 2 has called Aaron 1. And so he told him what he knows. And so Aaron 1 might do something else, but that's where the movie ends, Aaron 2 says, "You'll never find me." We find out that Aaron 2 is now in France building a warehouse-sized machine because he felt like, yeah, why not,
I guess he's going to make it he's going to sell it to the highest bidder who just going to go in there and be able to time travel.
I mean, maybe.
He wants to, the whole movie, Aaron's character wants to use it for personal gain.
Right.
Abe seems some personal gain, but it's more just about the science and the exploration and the problem solving of the situation.
Right.
He's more concerned. Abe is more concerned about safety and not messing things up too much.
Exactly, and which is why Abe 2 decides to sabotage them, and the reason why he went back in the failsafe in the first place to get an upper hand on Aaron, but Aaron, of course, already beat him to it.
Right. See, what I think is interesting too is when I was watching the movie, it felt like Abe was more of the bad guy than Aaron, which is probably on purpose. But,
yeah, it's a little ambiguous.
But when you go back and you think about it like how we're discussing now, Abe is doing things not necessarily the right way, but he has gone through this and then he used the failsafe for a good reason to stop them from building it in the first place. Which to me is more honorable than just trying to build a bigger one so you can make more money.
Right. Especially when it's this dangerous, potentially, of a machine.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to, as you said, Aaron 3 is going to die because he's gone back so many times at some point.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I heard this from Shane Carruth or some interview maybe, but I think he's just going to live out the rest of his days, which might not be long. I think that might be a paraphrasing of what I heard somewhere. I read in some interview maybe.
But the idea is that you can't use this time travel technology infinitely. It does have, consequences. It does have these big consequences, and we also see that with Granger, who didn't do it properly with the right timing and whatever, and so he was in a coma.
Well, actually, I think what happened is when Aaron contacted him, I think that sent him into a coma. I think that both of their exposures...
When Aaron contacted who?
When they ran down the alleyway, we don't see it, but they're both on the ground, passed out. I did think that Granger messed up, and I think so he had more... I think he had more effect from traveling back in time, but I think Aaron being close to him makes him worse.
Why?
Because I think he had radiation maybe as some type of exposure to the machine. Maybe it doubled for him. It's
why does Aaron being closer to him make him worse?
Maybe because at that point Aaron experienced the failsafe, and maybe Granger wasn't also in there for a long time. But see, maybe not because Abe is already there too, and he's fine.
Which Aaron is that?
That's Aaron 3.
Okay.
But yeah, that doesn't work out because Aaron and Abe are next to each other, and
yeah.
Is it possibly kind of not to draw a comparison to it again, but is it kind of possibly like Project Almanac, where if you get too close, well, that only works for a duplicate. No, not at all. No. This movie is different from that. There's no, the world doesn't end. It just creates a different timeline where there's two versions of you now.
What Hyde was going to say was in Project Almanac, if you look at yourself and realize that you're looking at a duplicate of yourself, it'll erase you from existence.
No, yeah, it's different.
But that's not obviously that's not what this movie does. But that's what he was going to say.
I got you.
If you were wondering what that was. I think it's interesting how Project Almanac is such a basis for comparing to other movies.
It is.
I'm glad we knocked it out.
It's the ultimate time travel movie.
It is. It inspired our podcast.
Probably because it's just a mishmash of all this time travel stuff.
It's all the tropes.
All thrown together.
It is.
Yeah, it is all the tropes.
Speaking of tropes, while we're on it, before we get back to the confusing timelines, There were definitely some very typical time travel tropes. They used a watch. It's very Back to the Future. They also mentioned lottery, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they decided not enough, so they used stock instead. Stocks.
Yeah. But there wasn't, they didn't spend a lot of time, how are we going to use our time machine? It was very much, they just...
Yeah, there are hints that Aaron has already traveled back in time, so in that sense, you can assume that he's already did it, but even though we don't see it, like, at the bench scene, he has the earpiece in. He says he's listening to March Madness, but, that's one thing that you'll notice after you see it again. You say, oh, he already had the earpiece in. But his ear bleeds before Abe's does because he's already used the failsafe, so he already has more exposure. And there's also the noise in the attic that his wife notices. And I thought that might be a plot hole because that's in the timeline after the first failsafe. But then Aaron that's been drugged is up there for more than a day.
That's the original Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, original Aaron, yeah. Because he's been drugged once, and we see later on that he gets out after 24 hours. But I think maybe Aaron just keep drugging him. He has no reason to not keep drugging him. Only reason why he leaves after 24 hours is because Aaron 3 and Abe 2 just leave. They leave town. Yeah. So there's no one there to keep drugging him, So it's not a plot hole, but that's more a hint that timeline has already, he's already time traveled. So those are the hints that are there.
Yeah. Are there other scenes of him with the earpiece? I feel like there are. I feel like
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
In the garage or something, maybe? I don't know. You'd have to watch it again, but...
You need to see it again.
But what's interesting is that the first time he recorded it, the basketball scene where he's talking to the friend, his coworker Will, we hear the conversation with Abe over the earpiece that he made the shot and like everything, but he misses it because his hands are not working quite as well, and the handwriting starts to suck too. So I thought that was pretty cool. It shows the toll it's having on them.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like when they first started trying to clone sheep, and like the sheep would like slowly just like deteriorate,
right?
Because like they just didn't have the right genetic makeup, and that's what I was thinking. Like kind of like also what we see in Predestination and other things. Like if you keep time traveling, it just keeps like because you're phasing through time and space, like your DNA and like your genetic material gets messed up.
Well, it's very much Lost.
Yeah, Lost.
How Desmond, which we will.
We gotta do it.
We're gonna do the Lost episode, The Constant, probably not too long from now. But in that episode, Desmond, he will die. It's very similar. It's nosebleeds. I think it'll be interesting for us to compare this to that because it is like two different timelines and affecting that. But as Desmond jumps back and forth, it starts to get harder to come back.
Yeah.
To the present. So that is that similar type of notion that the more you time travel, the sicker you get faster.
And I like that, and I appreciate that in time. I mean, not that I always want that in a time travel movie, particularly one that's like supposed to just be like very fun. Yeah. But in these more like grounded time travel movies, it makes sense.
Yeah. Like
you can't do anything in this life that is fast without doing some sort of damage to something. Whether the Earth or yourself. So it doesn't make any sense that, like, the time travel machine wouldn't have some side effects. I mean, you're phasing through time and space. Certainly something could potentially...
Yeah, I mean, especially this movie, because they're using, it's like energy fields that they're manipulating, so it's going to have an effect on you, Because it's not a wormhole that they're doing. They create a field that is, like, bouncing in between 2 points of time,
Yeah. So can we go through the rules that they set up of the time travel for this movie?
Yeah, things can change, obviously. It creates timelines.
Every time you go in the time machine, it creates a new timeline.
Yeah, essentially. And as long as you do it properly, it'll be fine because when you enter a new timeline, there's two of you in there. But as long as you don't mess up, the other one going back in time, he'll then leave your timeline because he went back in time. You know, and so then there's only one of you left over.
Yeah, he's only there for the duration of how long he's time traveling for. So as soon as he's done with his time traveling, the original one of him who time traveled in the first place will time travel again, so it's almost like a loop of traveling.
It just catches up, and then essentially you just have more money because you play the stocks. That's the only change in the world outside of you having time travel.
Which does affect that affects it. I mean, it could
It does.
potentially, we don't see it, but it could affect a major change because it's technically taking money from someone else.
That's true, but
Right.
they do mention that they use certain stocks that wouldn't have that much of an effect. Like, by them buying it, they will affect the stock, but they choose mid-level funds, I think they say. It's all stock, a lot of stock talk. I don't know stocks that well, but they do talk about which ones to take. That have a good gain, but also wouldn't have that much effect by them doing it, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So through the movie, we see, obviously, the relationship of Aaron and Abe kind of evolve as the time travel evolves.
Yeah, they go through a phase where they kind of disagree, but then come back together to work on the party, and then obviously part ways.
Yeah.
Kind of not amicably, but, you know, they don't hate each other, but Abe's like, don't ever come back here ever again.
Yeah. Which, like, thinking about it, I definitely like Abe more than Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
When I was
Oh, yeah.
watching the movie, I felt the opposite. But, like, after I kind of understood the movie, I definitely like Abe more. Because, to me, I think it was just because Abe felt really bossy.
Yeah. He was
but
very
that-
much a type A.
Yeah, but it was probably also because after a certain point, Aaron already knew it was going to happen. So, you know, he's
He let
being
Abe-
passive because he already knows the events and how they're going to occur.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I mean, for me, Abe, I mean, he is kind of he's kind of an irking personality, to say the least. But at the end of the day, he's trying to do the right thing. And he reminded me very much of like those scientists who are so wrapped in their work, they just don't, like the stereotypical scientists so wrapped in their work, they can't really know how to like socialize,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whilst Aaron felt more like, I'm super smart, but I'm also cool, and I know how to like
Yeah.
talk. I mean, where's a hoodie? That's in movie talk. In movie talk, I know we'll talk about clothes later, but
Yeah.
in movie talk, wearing a hoodie means two things: either you're kind of alone and like dejected, or you're really cool.
Which in this case is kind of both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. I thought it was odd. Like, speaking of Abe's odd personality, the scene with him and the muffin, it's like OCD. he puts the muffin on the plate and like adjusts it,
It
and
was-
then
yeah.
and then places the napkin and places the knife and the fork and puts the milk down.
it was.
Right?
It
Yeah.
was.
I thought it was odd to like focus on that for a whole like little beat, you know.
Instead of like having a scene that'll help explain the movie more, we need
Right.
to see a muffin being
Oh, yeah.
unwrapped. Yeah, sure,
little
that
quirk.
makes sense.
But I thought it was funny when Abe he passed out on like his bedroom floor. He woke up and like his phone was ringing. To figure out what time it was, he threw his shoe at the window to mess with the blinds. He like saw it was nighttime. He was like he threw the shoe like, okay, it's nighttime. I now know what time it is because like, you know,
Science.
That
he
was
passed out. I thought it
yeah,
was pretty funny.
that was the point where I was like, okay, so now I know that we're not seeing everything, and which bothered me, because bothered me to the point that I couldn't follow you. If you can take out stuff as long as I can still kind of follow the trajectory that you're going towards.
Mhm.
But that I was like, okay, so there's deliberately stuff missing and could possibly be shown to us out of order to mess with us.
Yeah, I know. There's a point in the movie where you're like, okay, I'm missing something here. Like, for me, I tracked my feelings the second time through, and that was when Granger showed up. I was like, okay, now I don't know everything, you know, what's going on. After the fact, I like the Granger part, but then the party stuff kind of lost me, you know. So around that point in the movie is where you definitely don't know everything, and the narration is kind of, it's reliable, I guess, but you don't see everything you need to see to make sense of everything.
Yeah. And you don't know how much the narrator knows.
Right.
So
Well, that's
it's
the
hard,
thing.
so you can't trust the narrator.
It's not necessarily. It is an unreliable narrator, but it's not unreliable because they don't. It's not unreliable because they don't know necessarily what happened.
Right.
It's because unreliable because you don't know what they're choosing to omit.
Well,
Yeah.
no, also because he wasn't there to live what he's explaining.
Oh,
he just
true.
knows
Yeah.
what he would have done. So when he talks, it's in third person because he's talking about Aaron and Abe, and then he uses me and I only when it's his small part in the story when he fights Aaron 3 and leaves.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just Abe would do this, Aaron would do this because
That's a
at
good
that
point. I didn't
point,
catch that.
because he left before all that stuff quote unquote happened in his timeline.
And it's
Oh,
kind of
dude,
that,
I didn't think about that.
and
Yeah,
that-
that's why I
Totally
like
missed that.
I like the phone call for that reason.
yeah, but that also makes it what the narrator tells us kind of null and void because, as we're saying, there's multiple timelines. So just because whatever happened in his timeline happened, and that's what he thinks, doesn't necessarily mean that in the other timelines that's the same thing.
Right, and see, this is why the pirate scene kind of feels odd because we don't see it. We don't see Aaron 3 and Abe 2 actually doing it. We hear Aaron 2 explaining what he would have done and what happened afterwards. how he was a hero
Like,
and he saved the day.
I could have saved her. I might have saved her, something like that.
Yeah, it could have been 10 tries. It could have been 20. I like to think it was just one more try, he says. So he doesn't know exactly what happened because he wasn't there to see it.
Yeah. Which that's kind of frustrating. I'm like, then why are you narrating the story?
Yeah.
And, it reminds me of this short film. I forgot the name of the director. I'm so sorry. Because he's an indie film director and he probably deserves the shout out. I'll try to track down his name and put it on Twitter or something. But yeah, this really interesting short about this guy who's about to propose to his girlfriend, and he had a secret power. His secret power is that he could rewind time by exactly 30 seconds.
Interesting.
And so he's going to talk to this woman. He's going to say try to get to his girlfriend and tell her he loves her. And while he's trying to meet up with her, she's crossing the street and gets hit by a car or something of that nature, some sort of automobile accident. So he runs over to her just instinctively, and he sees her dead, and he rewinds 30 seconds. And he tries it, but he's a couple seconds too late. So he keeps trying it, but every time he does it, he's actually going back a half second in time. So no matter how much he screams or anything, he just is actually even that much more further away from saving her.
Wow.
And so it was very interesting, but that's kind of what that little scene, little caveat reminds me of. But it's an interesting idea, which I wish was actually explored a little bit more. There's a lot. I mean, again, this is a movie that there's a lot of interesting stuff happening, and all of it kind of is put on the table, and I understand your frustration with it, Jen. And then it's just kind of arbitrarily taken away from you.
Yeah.
And you're
that's one thing that, as much as we all disliked Project Almanac, at least they showed stuff to us. We saw their duplicates. We saw them do the science test 5 times.
Right.
It was a bad movie, but hey, at least they showed us the stuff that they told us they were going to.
Yeah, and so, so I talked to Jen before we started the podcast, Hyde. So let me know if you have any questions, because I think I kind of helped Jen understand it, and I think it's your first time me explaining it to you. One thing we never saw in the movie is, besides a flashback, was Aaron taking back a failsafe with him through a failsafe. Because what he actually did was he used the original failsafe and then moved that to a different room, and then replaced it with another failsafe that would start 15 minutes later.
After his...
So either way, he always has the upper hand on Abe, because whenever Abe uses what he thinks is the original failsafe, it's not the original. It's one that's been replaced by another one.
It still works as a failsafe, but
it's a little bit after.
Aaron's failsafe goes back earlier than Abe's.
Yeah, because he had to move it, because he's in it, right?
That actually saying something that I wasn't even thinking as a question, but just to clarify something, because I always just thought he had tampered with it and made it. I thought that was the reason why he was never quite in the right time. Not because it was the wrong one. I just thought he had messed with it, changed something in the equation.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's because he mentions that you can fold it up and take it with you. It's modular, I think they say, because you can make it smaller. So that's what he did. He took it with him and then replaced it with the original one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a question I had about it. It's just a quick one about. Okay, so you're talking about the fields and basically the best time to walk through it.
Yeah.
So Granger didn't. He didn't do it at the right time, right? He said that we're supposed to. It seemed like something went wrong. He either used it too much, or he exited or entered too early. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I think. Because when Aaron first used it, he exited too soon, and he had a more effect. He felt more sick than Abe did, and so what I think Granger had instructions, and he was told to set his watch to some time, and maybe he said it wrong, or he passed out and woke up. Maybe too late. I don't know. Maybe something happened and he just didn't do it right. Because if he was gone, maybe if he took it back a couple days, that's a long time to be traveling.
Okay, so that brings me to my 2 theories about Granger and why he time traveled.
Okay.
One, it has something probably to do. I think it has to be linked to Aaron. I don't think Abe would have told Granger to time travel.
Well, Abe was dating Rachel. His daughter.
But why send Granger? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Why not send Rachel?
Yeah.
That's why I think it would be. I think Aaron either did it for selfish reasons, because I didn't catch until you told me that he was the guy who's funding his project.
Yeah.
So that could have something to do with it. Honestly, what I thought at the end of the movie was that Aaron sent Granger because Granger figured it out, and he basically wanted to kill Granger by like giving him like, because he's already tampered with the box. This goes back to my tampering with the box thing, that he basically gave him a really bad time trick to just screw with Granger.
Maybe.
Well, I think that could be reasonable because at the end, when Aaron 2 is in France, right? Aaron 2 is in France and like setting up his own thing. He wouldn't want Granger to still be around, claiming, copyrights or
this
whatever.
is my technology.
It's easier if he just, puts him in a coma and then he's out of the way. And, what an easy way than, messing up with the time travel.
I mean, that's what I thought. I thought it was some nefarious deal. Like, I didn't know exactly what, but now I'm like hearing like the bits and pieces that's coming together. I'm like, well, at least that's what I'm thinking. I could be completely wrong.
Maybe.
But again, we will never know because...
Or someone can tell us on the Soch.
Well, that's what I like about the Granger thing is because he's from a future in which we don't know what happened, but he came back to affect the past. And once he did, we're stuck with these characters, Aaron 3 and Abe 2, that we've been following most of the movie. And so we stick with them. Like, they'll never know because things have been changed.
That's a good point. Maybe Granger went inside the time machine in France because he come with this big... Everyone time travels, but like there's rules, and Granger breaks one of the rules, or he's trying to stop it from ever becoming a thing.
But the problem with that is that he can only travel as far back as the machine's been created. So I think it has to do with...
As a machine or the machine?
Any machine. And the only machines that have been created at this point were the fail-safe and the 2 boxes.
Okay, but it's not unreasonable that he's saying maybe in France he travels because these machines were already created here that we're seeing in the movie. It's not... You said... a machine, so it could be from France to all the way back.
And then just like the beard.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I don't know. Again, I'm not... This is just a crazy film theory.
I know, but this is something we haven't seen, I don't believe, in a time travel movie, is that, like, from some future, that we'll never see, this thing, because someone comes in the past to mess with the story that we're watching,
Yeah.
Right. He's actually kind of a... Granger's actually, for all intents and purposes, he's not minor. But he's not a major character either. Mm-hmm. Like, he just is kind of like, hey, I'm from the future.
Well, he has no lines, I don't think, in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But few people do, so.
It's true.
That's true.
It's true.
Other questions?
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys like, I guess, the end of the movie with him going to France and building a bigger version of it?
It was a very chilling ending. I mean, it definitely was something that made me uncomfortable.
I like it because it's like we over here on like the phone call. He's like, "Don't look for me, you never find me," and it like just cuts to him with like his own team, and like the music picks up, and you're like, "All right,"
I don't think just because he's in France means that you'll never be able to find him, though.
Well, no. I mean, like Aaron 2 is like, "Don't ever look for me. I'm gone. Just like this is all I'm doing for you. I need to make up for drugging you. That kind of thing."
Ugh, I just think he's a terrible character. I do not like him.
Terrible human being.
He is. He's very selfish. I think he's a very selfish character. All the stuff he does for himself or for personal gain. He doesn't do. I mean, maybe I guess you could say the Rachel stuff. He tries to help Abe, but like not really. I feel like he's the kind of guy who, if he could eliminate Abe from even knowing about this time travel in the first place, he would.
Well, here's the thing. Here's why Aaron 2 and Aaron 3 are so selfish, because they no longer have a family anymore. That's now Aaron 1's family. So they lost their family. Like, they don't have a wife anymore. They don't have a kid anymore. It's just, they're just alone. So they have no family.
That's a good point. Just kind of cut off.
Yeah.
That's weird, because that's right. Because of duplication, they don't
stuck.
really... They have all these memories and all these connections to people that, to them, basically, they exist and they don't at the same time.
Yeah, and because they're stuck there and they can't,
like there's no way they can have a life
timeline
back.
isn't just a loop. Yeah.
It's not like you can say, like, well, I'm going to travel back to the 1960s and make a life there.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like, you can only go as far back as you making the machine.
Yeah.
It's a good point. And that's another thing
Yeah,
to think about.
which, that sucks, but it's also like, I had a problem with the fact that the women in this movie were merely props. Yeah, his wife had some lines, but I don't think that counts.
This does not pass the Bechdel Wallace test.
It does
It
not.
doesn't pass the women are people test.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. We don't even see a close-up of this girl Rachel's face.
That's true.
The closest we
Just
get
a
is when
breath,
she
just
walks
dress.
by the camera at the party. And, like, and at that point I was like, who's Rachel? And I was like, oh, I guess we can assume she's dating Abe. But, like, even that, to me, I was like, I didn't feel like it was...
But this continues the trend, though technically, as I've been corrected by one of our listeners, Robbie DeVillis, Emma Watson does time travel in
Yes.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Well, I said that while we were
Yeah.
recording.
That's right, you did.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's like,
But
yeah, she's
pretty much.
she's the only woman other than Project Almanac, which I'll call that like a wash.
Because
it's
she
like,
ends up disappearing
yeah, she
anyway,
vanishes from
so
right.
it's
She has
not
like almost
fair.
no importance other to be like the sexy girl
Yeah.
of the time traveling. But yeah, like, women do not time travel in movies. There's something really weird about that. Women don't do time travel for some
Well,
reason.
first of all, women are misrepresented in STEM fields. First of all, so science fields in general. And that's half of the time travel movies are like science,
Like,
science,
yeah.
tech, and engineering.
Why couldn't one of the 4 people in the garage have been a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the ones who didn't time travel just want
Even
to
the
like,
ones who had no dialogue.
yeah, like, hey, let's go lay some hoops, you know? Hey.
Yeah,
That's my impression of a woman.
it was so... Yeah, I had a problem with that. It was very male-heavy. And I didn't see a reason why it had to be that way.
Yeah, besides indie low budget, he only brought his friends in. Maybe he doesn't have any women friends.
Except Rachel.
Apparently.
Well, in real life, I mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so consequences we did talk about.
Yeah. It kills you eventually.
Yeah, if you time
Messes
travel
you up.
wrong, you'll be in a coma.
You can't write.
It messes with your,
Your ears bleed.
your
Can't play basketball
hands.
again.
Yeah. Your ears bleed when you do it frequently enough. So scientific accuracy, is there some accuracy to this?
Obviously this is sci-fi. It's different from like wormholes that we usually have to rely on. Again, they're messing with gravity, and gravity is space and time are related. So I like to imagine that in this world of science, that if you mess with gravity enough, it can create a field in which gravity and time are like in a bubble, where there's point A and point B, and you just go around the edge of the bubble like a circle. It creates that kind of field around there.
Okay.
It's not realistic, obviously, but what I do like is that Shane spent a lot of time working out the science of it, and that he studied real scientific principles to back up what they say in the movie, even though it's not going to happen in the real world. He did enough work. He's a math major, it's an engineer. So I like that he took the care to make it as realistic as you can in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were there plot holes with the time travel? It might be hard to answer because there's stuff we have to kind of guess on.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think any plot hole that I thought of was maybe Aaron in the attic, but you can explain it by he just kept drugging him that we didn't see.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way that the timelines are created, I think that Shane actually thought it out beforehand to the point where it does track. I don't see any big holes in the way that they planned out because it's once you figure it out, it's pretty simple. He took the failsafe once, drugged himself, and then when he did it again, he ran into himself, drugging himself. It's kind of a simple concept, so it doesn't mess it up that much. It's just in these rules of the universe, the timelines branch off into different timelines. So there's no one timeline that can mess things up. Once you go to a different timeline, anything can happen because it's a new timeline.
Yeah.
So it is consistent, I feel.
Yeah, obviously it is relevant to the story. It is the story. Is the name primer supposed to mean something?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, primer prepares something. It's what you take before you do something. So with paint, it primes the wall to have paint on it.
Prime the engine.
Like with medicine, I think it gets you ready for it. Yeah, it's preparing you to do something. So it's doing something before something else happens. So yeah, I think it can be it's a unique enough word that it is unique, but it's also kind of not that special.
Yeah. Clothes and sets.
Very
Hoodie Man.
Hoodie Man.
Early 2000s.
Very white men office wear.
Yeah, 2 white guys with A names.
2 white guys with A names, both wearing almost identical stuff the entire movie.
So I guess if they did one thing right with Rachel has a lot of colorful and a lot of pattern on her.
Mm-hmm. At the party.
Yeah.
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 I thought the clothes of them, it was very much like my first job. my first job interview kind of clothes, where it's kind of like the pants don't quite fit you, the shirt's kind of baggy.
It's too baggy, your tie's a little bit loose, and maybe not the
Yeah.
right size. It's like not, it's not appealing. They don't look like they care what they were wearing.
Yeah, everything. This whole movie felt like every time they wear it, like the room felt 10 degrees too hot for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
a
hot
good.
in here.
That's a good way to put it.
They are in Texas, and they are in a U-Haul facility, so I'm pretty sure it's hot in there. I'm pretty sure it's like an oven, just baking in those storage facilities.
Which I had a note that it reminded me of Storage Wars. I was thinking about that. Like, man, what if they left that and someone came across that on the
Oh my
Storage Wars
God.
episode?
We have
$200 for the time machine.
$200 for the PVC pipe and metal sheeting.
And a giant printer.
Yeah.
Xerox of some sort.
So, would you guys want to experience this time travel?
No.
I'm kind of on the fence for doing it for 6 hours on one day to make some big...
You can't amend. You have to
But then,
do what they do in the movie.
then Matt won.
Okay. Well, I know,
You
but...
have to kill Matt 1.
You
Well, okay,
can't
look,
amend the movie. It's
I
experience this time travel that occurs in this movie, which means you would be either Abe or Aaron and go multiple
I
times.
would be Aaron too if I had to choose a character. But if it's outside of the characters in the movie, I would do it once to win the lottery. I would go back 6 hours once I found out the lottery, buy the lottery ticket, and then be done with it.
I would not want to experience this time travel because even as you're saying just once, it seems like maybe it messes with your brain in ways that we don't see physically on them other than just your hands. So like who knows if there's more side effects mentally or, who knows.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass.
Yeah, I'm going to pass too, only because it would be weird if there's a Matt 1 and Matt 2, and like I have all these relationships with people, but it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So this would either lead to having to just go off and become some sort of start a completely whole new life, or kill Matt 1 to take my life back.
That's if you mess it up.
If
you do it properly.
This is that just sounds horrible. I mean, I don't know.
I know.
This whole any of these characters, this just sounds no. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'd be one of the coworkers.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, okay, bye.
We can't go in your garage anymore? Okay, sorry. See ya.
I'm gonna be on the street hooping it up.
Yeah.
With Rachel.
So any other notes about the film, maybe non-time travel related?
I just had the shoe and the muffin. That's pretty much my extra notes.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
There was a girl who I saw on OkCupid who listed Shane as one of her top favorite film directors. So that was very interesting.
That is
He hasn't really made a lot of films.
He's only done 2 movies.
Yeah, he had 2.
Yeah, so she was really like Primer. She didn't respond to my message. So
if you're out there,
if you're out there listening,
get back to him.
You missed out. We could have watched this movie together. You could explain to how great it is.
Yeah.
Now you just listen to this podcast.
You could have been a guest on the show.
Could have been a guest on the show, but now you know what? You're just out there, and I'm here, and happy. Sure.
I didn't like that. I mean, it's enough that we can assume what happened, but I didn't like that all of a sudden the huge human-sized machines were built, and Abe had already gone through this and, done all this stuff. I think it was because we spent so much time with them in the beginning of the film watching them build it, that all of a sudden now it's just already done, and he's already time traveled. I wanted to see him time travel the first time, which I guess, we see Aaron, maybe, I don't know how the timelines work, whatever, but that was something where I was like, wait, how did all that stuff get there? What? So did Abe just do it? And then, so I thought that was kind of that's just a personal thing, I guess. There was a line or something I have in my notes, don't want to cause any ripples, and I literally wrote haha next to it, because there's so many, I get Abe, I guess, doesn't want to cause problems more than he has to, but Aaron's whole agenda, he doesn't really seem to care.
Yeah, he first went back and then drugged himself. I think he's past that whole no consequence thing. But yeah, Abe is very much. There was a clip, or there's a part in the movie where he's explaining what he's doing. He's like, I go to a hotel, I take out the phone, I just play board games, I take myself out of the equation. Like, that's Abe's whole thing. Is like, let me just do this for science, I guess, and maybe it's for stocks. Well, yeah, Abe's idea was the stocks stuff. But yeah, he's like, I don't want to mess with anything, you know. But Aaron's like, first thing I'm going to do, drug myself.
Yeah. Yeah. They did have a discussion about telling your significant other. They didn't end up doing that, but at least they talked about it, I guess. I don't know, which is more than, like, other movies that we've watched where it's like,
True.
why wouldn't you just tell them? Like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I know we've talked about
Time.
that. About Time, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Time Traveler's wife.
Time Traveler's wife is another, yeah. Well, she knows.
Well, yes, that's right. She does know. Yeah, she knows.
She knows
Yeah, she knows.
Beyonce.
Sorry, I was
She
thinking.
knows
I was
from the
thinking
beginning.
About Time, where he doesn't even think about it.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Different Rachel McAdams movie.
Time Traveler's Wife. You're a good movie.
Yeah. I also kind of wondered about what the purpose of the story was. Just in the sense, like, I get the whole friendship and then, you know, building the time machine on a basic level, but what was the point of the story? Why was he trying to tell that? What am I supposed to take from it? I didn't get that.
Yeah, and I was saying before you recorded that from like a kind of like a mathematical standpoint, I think he wanted to think of a way to use time travel to tell this intricate story, and I think it was more of a challenge that he accepted and tried to follow through on to tell this like intricate storyline with time travel that probably at this point we haven't seen before in any movie because it's 2004. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, when it came out, it's pretty unique. I mean, I think it still is pretty unique, but I think what Shane tried to do is just to like make a scenario and tell the story, you know, about two friends, and also work out this mathematical way to use time travel, I think.
Yeah. So my last note was, who's the antagonist of this movie?
Aaron 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he's the one that, you know, initially drugged himself, fought himself, wanted to stop Abe from doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Those are my notes. So final reviews. Hi, did you want to start?
Sure. You know, as a movie, I mean, it's very low budget, so I'm trying to go with that in mind. But the acting is actually pretty decent, and it's you know, the story is interesting, and it moves along very quickly. I just wish it actually fleshed out some stuff. From a filmmaking standpoint, particularly considering how much it was made for, I'm going to give it like a 6.5 out of 10. Because while I've seen so much worse films around this budget range, and while it's not perfect, it's a movie that got me talking and thinking and kept me tuned in the whole time. I had to be. And I can see why people were like, this director has it direction. Because I think he does. I think he just needs to, like, you know, get a bigger team around him other than himself doing everything.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I think those are definitely good points. And I do like its uniqueness, but again, I don't like how hard I have to work just to be able to comprehend your movie, so I do have to dock points for that. And for your main characters kind of both being really unlikable and unrelatable for me, especially as a woman. There isn't a character in here that I felt like was kind of wandering with me. I was just kind of trying to figure it out and like running behind them, Abe and Aaron, trying to figure out what they were doing instead of being there with them and learning as they learn, which is something that I kind of had a problem with. So, yeah, so I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I tracked my feelings watching it the second time, like I said. So my rating will be mathematical, as par with this movie. And the point at which I was confused watching the movie, you know, this for the movie rating, was 56 minutes, and it's 76 minutes long, and that equals 7.5.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And I agree. I do like the movie. I like it more now that I figured it out. And I do like it from a scientific standpoint too. But yeah, I do think it should have done more explaining. But I still I like it. I do like it, begrudgingly.
Time travel rating?
Time travel rating, I mean, even though it takes away a lot from you, it's a very solid time. I mean, it felt over my head. And sometimes in a bad way, but sometimes in a really good way. That I was like, this seems like they really did the research on, like, how would this be possible? I thought it was I liked that we got to see the nitty-gritty work of figuring out how time travel worked. I agree with you, Jin, though. A straight man, and what I mean by that is not necessarily a heterosexual man or, like, a male character, but some character who they could have explained everything to.
That the audience can follow.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's so important in science fiction.
Yeah.
And I think they needed that. So I'll talk a few points for that, just because it was so out there.
Mm-hmm.
But time travel-wise, I gotta give it an 8 out of 10. Like, it's a really solid, even when it gets really confusing, it's a really solid time travel experience.
Yeah, I agree. I also will give it an 8 out of 10 for time travel. Which shows that just because I don't like a movie doesn't mean I can't separate it from judging the time travel, which is the point of our podcast. Because a movie like this, they did spend the time, as you were saying, flushing it out and, putting in the time to work out all the details that they needed to for the story's sake. I mean, yeah, it didn't go out perfectly, but I will give credit for the creativity and the timelines and, the duplication. Yeah, I didn't necessarily love this example of duplication just because this movie itself was kind of not strong for me. But there is duplication, so 8 out of 10.
I'm trying to think of points I can dock, and I guess the points I can dock for is maybe give us more in the movie. But I spent so much time after seeing it for the second time figuring it out, and it was satisfying to figure it out for me once it all clicked in my head and all the timelines matched up, and I kind of saw what was happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to give it I'm juggling between a 9 and a 9.5. Not a 10, but I'll settle on a solid 9. I do like it. It's like you guys said, it's solid time travel.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish that it was in the movie. But it was satisfying to figure it out.
Yeah, I do wish it was there more, too. Okay, so the Rotten Tomatoes rating, 71%. So,
yeah.
Matt, you were pretty on. I think that he looks a lot like Keanu Reeves. Is that just me?
Yeah, in that picture he does.
I think he does. So the critics' consensus is dense, obtuse, but stimulating. Primer is a film for viewers ready for a cerebral challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But I don't necessarily think that... Anyway.
I mean, that's for people that love film, so this is very, film
it's
student kind of movie.
It's not, So, next episode is back to my choice.
Ooh.
Guys, I can't wait any longer. This is a movie, I know that you've been waiting to do Primer for a while. This is a movie that I've been waiting to do for a while. One of my favorite just movies. It's just awesome. X-Men Days of Future Past. We're doing it. We're going there. I'm so excited.
We're doing the Rogue cut.
Yeah, I was going to say, note, we are going to be doing the Rogue cut, so if you have not seen that, one, it's superior to the theatrical cut. But two, it's a little bit different. I will kind of explain the difference when we go through it, just for story's sake. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Rogue cut, do recommend. The
time travel is still the same, so that explanation won't change that much, but it does change the movie pretty significantly with Rogue in it.
Yeah.
For better. So if you haven't seen it, you should just see it.
Yeah,
if you've seen the original and not Rogue cut, see the Rogue cut.
Do yourself the favor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you thought X-Men Days of Future Past was good, which it was, wait until you see the Rogue cut, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't think this movie could get better, and it just did.
And it does, so obviously Bryan Singer made this movie, so to kind of erase his timeline or the timelines
of X-Men 3
of previous X-Men films. So he directed. The plot is the X-Men send Wolverine to the past in a desperate effort to change history and prevent an event that results in doom for both humans and mutants.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to get into that next time. If two things I want to note as we're doing our social media as we close out. If anyone has seen, maybe on our Twitter or Instagram, that the three of us have T-shirts with our logo on it. If anyone, we're thinking about seeing if there's an interest, if listeners, I was almost going to say viewers, if listeners...
They're not viewers.
They're not viewers. If listeners would be interested, if you guys would ever want to buy one of those, let us know so we can see about maybe looking into that.
Yeah, the ones we have, a friend of ours made them for us, so we didn't actually make them ourselves. They were gifts given to us, but we can definitely look into making them if there's an interest.
Yeah, which shout out to my brother who made them for us.
Yes, Kevin.
So that is that. I feel like I had a second thing, but I don't remember. So we'll just get into social media. We are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and Instagram, and the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. We are on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, all for free, of course. So please rate, subscribe, follow us there. That's what I was going to say. On Twitter, someone commented, that they reviewed us on iTunes. So I definitely wanted to give a shout out for the This or That podcast, who wrote us an awesome review. So thank you, peeps, for doing that.
That is a good podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They really have some cool stuff. So
Yeah, shout out.
please listen to it.
And thank you for everyone who's been listening to us. It still kind of amazes me if someone sends us a tweet or something about something that we mentioned. I'm like, oh, people actually want to hear us talking. It's kind of crazy.
There are definitely a few listeners out there, and you know who you are, that have been listening every week, and we really appreciate that. And we definitely, we really like seeing you guys talk to us. Even though we might not get to you every time, we definitely like seeing you guys reach out to us. So
yeah, so we do appreciate that. So I personally am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to follow me on those.
I am at Foreman in Space. Side note, this episode's exactly as long as the movie is. Sorry, go for it. Go ahead.
Ooh.
Wow.
You can follow me at Robinson is Hyde on Twitter and Instagram.
And with that,
We are out of time.